Hello and welcome to Discover Joyous Love. I am your host, Anita DeFrancesco, and I bring this program to you on my webcam on Mondays, but it can be searched. You can go to my YouTube channel at Anita DeFrancesco or Tantra Wisdom, and you can find the shows there, the archive shows. Anyhow, today's topic, episode number 14, we're going to be talking about relationship sabotage and how we, with our emotions that haven't been processed, or the emotions that are traumatized, the traumatized emotions living in the body, how this can creep up into a healthy relationship or a new relationship, and how we can sabotage it with just a little bit of things, a little bit of psychological, things that get in the way. But there's always help for this, and of course, in order to help yourself, you want to seek out the proper therapy, the proper counseling. Now, I'm a psychotherapist, a love and relationship coach, and I can be found in Philadelphia, AnitaDeFrancesco.com. And, the work has to be done. So let me start with what I have for you today, episode 14. Now, some of my work here that I'm talking about today is quoted by an article I saw by Dawn M. Williams, Everyday Health, and the psychoanalyst Erik Erikson, who laid out the foundation of the dynamics of why a relationship goes into sabotage, or why we sabotage it ourselves. And keeping in mind, one of the biggest things that I think, firstly, that sabotages a relationship is you get influenced by the wrong people, the wrong friends. You find a relationship, you like it, you're in love, and and all of a sudden you tell your friends about it. And they're supposed to be happy for you and supportive, right? They're supposed to be happy and supportive. But as time goes on, they become envious because they see how happy you are and how great the steps are you're making toward relationship success. So this, I would say, the influence of friends is one of the first biggest things that can sabotage your relationship. If your friends are not supportive of your relationship, and I mean, even if you're talking to them, airing the dirty laundry about what you don't like about him or her, what she does, what he does, that gets on your nerves, that makes you angry. If that person doesn't support and gives you negative feedback, you do not want to discuss your relationship with them, because then that helps you to first of all, they are jealous, okay? And what happens is, over time, as the time goes on, they will continually, like a broken commercial, like a repeated commercial, over and over, repeat that they don't like. You shouldn't go out with this person because they're this, that, or the other. So the thing is, it's up to you to get the proper positive support from friends. And if you don't get that, then do not discuss your relationship with them, because they will only help you to sabotage it. And that's number one, the friends that you're influenced by. So let's get into here what psychoanalyst Erik Erikson lays out the foundation of the dynamics. Now, why relationships sabotage? We learn whether we can trust ourselves or others. So we learn this from a young age, whether we can trust ourselves, whether we can trust others. And this is a big thing in the relationship. So what it is that you have to come back to yourself and first build a self-trust through self-love. It's really about, once you have cultivated self-trust, you can trust someone else. But then again, what I talked about before is that we are not designed to be the most trusting. You're going to meet someone and all of a sudden you're going to have all this trust built up. It's not going to happen that way. People are not as disciplined. They are not in their higher power to be able to be trusted 100%. So what goes along with relationships is mistrust. is working and forgiving and accepting and meeting each other halfway and finding that happy balance, the balance of giving and receiving, and knowing that nothing is perfect. That is where you go with a relationship. It is not going to be perfect. Continuing here, self-expression and initiative are valued or to be suppressed. So when you're in a relationship, are you initiating? Are you taking the lead? Are you taking charge? Or are you the one feeling that you should suppress your thoughts and your assertiveness and the feelings and that are on your mind, or what's happening inside of you? Do you feel that it's better to suppress that, or is it better to take charge? So you have to find a happy medium there. You have to be self-independent, and you have to have this sense of identity, this emancipation of coming back into your body temple and finding that place of security, that place of it's okay. And once you understand the balance of your own homeostasis within your own body, then you can realize that you can have that voice. You can open up and speak your mind. It is not okay to suppress your thoughts. It's just a time and a place as to when to bring these thoughts or words out in the relationship. You always want to find that time and place. So what I suggest is to build this altar, this place where two people come together and they have a serenity moment and they are able to discuss what it is they need more of, what it is they want to let go of, what they like about what's going on between the two of them. So that's where you need to go with that instead of suppressing it. You can make a list, make the notes, write everything down, what it is that you want to talk about. We learn to feel worthy or confident or ashamed and guilty of who we are. So worthy or confident or ashamed and guilty. Now we all have, a lot of us have a shame base. We're shame based and hiding, and this shame based part of us brings out the guilt and takes away the self-worth, or weighs out the self-worth and the confidence, the courage. So the shame that is there, we need to tap in and start to work with the emotions, tapping in, understanding, where to go with these. The dormant areas that are trapped within the certain cells of your body need to be exposed, need to come out into the open and be nourished. So we learn to feel worthy or confident or ashamed and guilty. Now, you can go back and forth between these, but you still want to find that happy medium. These lessons form the core of our belief system. So a lot of these lessons are the core and the foundation of what you've learned as a young child and the patterns that formed and shaped your psychological being. Responsive careness. Responsive caregivers teach us, so your caregivers, which would be your parents, that we can depend on those we love. This is so false. Young girls growing up, women, depend on those you love. You don't want to depend on each other. You never want to depend on your partner. You always want to have that independence of yourself, being able to step back and see who you are and maintain and sustain your humanness. When you start to over-depend on your partner, it's almost like a codependency, almost like a fixation that, it's like Cain and Abel, that you can't be without each other. You can't make a decision. You're only whole as together. You complete each other. And that is not the case. That is not the case. You must come back to your own independence, your own self-identity. But the caregivers will teach us that we depend on those that we love. So we have to find, again, another happy medium in there. You can depend so much. Then you have this is the beginning of trust, where parents who accept and discipline lovingly teach us that we are worthy and deserving. And this is true. This is where your trust begins. If you have parents that accept and discipline you in a loving way, that they accept you, they don't criticize you for the wrong things that you do, they help you to work through that. They talk to you in a kind way instead of criticizing one thing you did wrong. It's their own anger, it's their own projection. And the discipline, they teach us that, there's structure, there's boundaries, there's freedom within a household. You can have freedom within structure, and that's where it is, freedom within structure. So you definitely need some discipline when you're growing up, because without the discipline, you can go off balance. So you want to keep the id, the ego, superego balanced. Those who encourage exploration of the self and the environment teach us we are capable. So if you have parents, caregivers, teachers that encourage your creativeness, your explorative side, that encourage you to go out, explore, experience, and become something, then you learn how to be more capable. So intervention of the arts, or intervention of seeking out from the linear. So stepping out of the linear would be just going to school and learning the ABCs. But if you step out of that with creativeness, such as physical education or creative arts, then you're exploring and intervening with the other parts of your humanness, your psychological self. Exploring the patterns in failed relationships provides clues to our deepest beliefs. So again, if you've lived many failed relationships, chances are, if you don't work on yourself, you're going to repeat the same type of relationship. The patterns are there, and the relationships repeat. If you're used to dating an abusive man or woman, you will repeat that if you don't get the help for the trauma living in the body. So we have to open up the dormant areas again and reduce the armor that's living in the body, because these become your beliefs. We have to restructure your cognition, and whatever the cognition is believing is what you manifest. So we have to go in and do what we call this restructuring of the cognition, sort of like an operation of the mind. That's what I call it. I don't call it a shrink, but that's pretty much where you want to go so that you can change and adapt and adjust and become new. Recurring themes in your early memories will relate to behaviors that sabotage your relationship. So recurring themes in your early memories. So go back, reflect for a moment when you were a child, and what were the recurring themes in the household? Was there a lot of arguing? Was there a lot of abandonment, neglect? Did your parents fight and one run out and one stay? Or was there always this kind of bullying at school? Or the early relationships that you were in when you started to date, were they that way? Were they neglectful? Were they abusive? Were they selfish, and you dated a man or woman, a boy or girl, we'll say, and they just wanted to take from you, the takers in life, the perpetrators that come in and they want to just feed off of you. I call them vampires. Well, you have to look at that and look at that comes and look back at your childhood. So again, we all need to do the work, and this is where it is, the psychological work. So we're going to come into, for a moment here now, these were just some of the reasons that why relationship sabotages, and but let me give you some other reasons here. Now, you go into a relationship, you meet someone great, you like this person, everything is super about them, but you have these unrealistic expectations. Women expect sometimes from a man perfection from their partner. I see a lot of that women expect this perfection. And they tend to get this OCD about it. They want the man to be perfect. As if they're perfect? I don't know. And it's vice versa. And a lot of time men, they want the perfect woman, the perfect body. She has to have the perfect, physique and everything, or the perfect career. So these unrealistic expectations can dampen and sabotage your relationship. So go into a relationship with love and spirit rather than expectations. And other expectations like, hey, are you going to be with me forever or not? Or here, again, with these expectations, you set the scenario like the knight in shining armor. How many of us from childhood are waiting to be the Cinderella, waiting to be rescued? The knight in shining armor is coming, and all of a sudden the prince has rescued you, and he comes with a white horse. Well, it's a nice fantasy to have, and it is a good fantasy to work with, because what that helps us do is to have this, to build up this, we have this puppy love when you first meet your first lover when you're 16 or 15. And when you get into your higher power, if you've done the work, there's this reverence that comes. But if you want to maintain that high, that love high, looking at your partner as if they were the knight in shining armor, even if they aren't. But they are, because that's the way you look at them. So the fantasy is there just to help you have a vision. Not even a vision, it's a feeling. Do you find fault in the things that he or she says? Now, how often do we find fault in our partner? He does this, she said that, or vice versa. I mean, all of these faults that you find that you don't like about your partner, make a list. And again, get in that serenity, sacred space where the two pillows, the altar, and you come together and deliberate and go over what it is that you like about each other, what it is that you dislike, what can you change about your partner, what can be done better, what you need more of. I mean, to find fault over and over again, that means you really don't like the person. Have you found yourself wishing he would be different? She's fat, I wish she were thin. He smokes, I wish he didn't smoke. She doesn't go to work, I wish she did go to work. Or he grew up on the wrong side of town, I wish he grew up in the prominent side of town. So these are the things that you have to get away from, or else you are already sabotaging. First of all, make a list what you want, what you will live with, what you can live with, and what you can live without. If you can live with a mate that comes from the wrong side of town and not the prominent side, great. If you can live with a mate that does drugs or that doesn't do drugs, if you can live with a mate that smokes or doesn't smoke, if you can live with a mate that has an obese physique or not, so these are the things. Or can you live with a mate that's poor or rich? So you want to make that list, because that is where it is. It is categorizing exactly what it is, and you're not going to get perfect, okay? You're not going to find perfect, but during the course of all of this, you can certainly find a happy medium. You're listening to Discover Joyous Love. I'm Anita DeFrancesco, your host, and our topic today is Relationship Sabotage, episode number 14. Chronic mistrust. Now, this is a big thing. Again, like I said, there is no trust. People are not designed to be perfect and stand on that grid forever. They will fall off. They will fall down. Learn to forgive and accept, but to a point. Suspicion for no reason. Sometimes we're in this suspicious thing with our partner, and we are constantly finding, a disbelief, a paranoia that we're afraid of. Really, it's the fear that's living inside you. So you need to check with what's going on in your being. A fear of the partner lying or hiding things from you. So does your partner hide things from you? Do things without sharing? Now, in a relationship, if you're in an exclusive or a kind of a solid relationship, okay, if you're in a solid relationship, there should be no hiding. You're sharing what each other does. You're exchanging every day. And this is part of being in the relationship. And if you don't do that, then you don't belong in that relationship. You need to share. It's part of it. If the relationship is solid and exclusive. Do you feel you need to question his or her motives when you're apart and separated? So he or she goes away for 2 days or spends a lot of time at work, overtime. Do you feel that you need to question? If so, you need to come back to your sacred space and start talking. Because if you are having this kind of feeling, maybe the relationship isn't for you, or it needs work, or you need to step back and just date and start to really see if you're for each other. Remember, our emotions can move ahead of us, and we are blinded by that sometimes. Your past experiences may be influencing your lens. So you've had many lovers, men or women, that were abusive, mistrusting. They all betrayed you in many ways. And betrayal's not just cheating with another lover. It's disrespecting you. It's being dishonest. It's belittling and judging. So betrayal comes in many colors, in many forms. But you are basing this relationship on the past because that's the pattern that you're living, because you haven't lifted your self-esteem yet. You haven't come up to your higher power. So once you start to believe in yourself and have the courage to uplift your confidence and start to bring your self-worth to a level of being seen differently, of seeing differently, seeing through a different lens, then you're on the road to healing yourself. It's all about healing each other together, silencing the self. So you're in the relationship, right? Of course, a lack of communication, but beside that, your relationships should be based on this genuine connection. And you work toward that. Sometimes it's really natural, it comes, and other times you really have to work toward this genuine connection, because if you don't work toward it, then what? What are you working toward? What are you working toward in the relationship? That's a good question for you to think about this week. Be free to the self to respectfully express the needs and feelings. So each of you should be able to be free in the relationship. Again, like I said, structure, boundaries, and freedom within a relationship. So you should be able to express your feelings naturally and fluently in the way that you want to. You should be able to respectfully express, being open without feeling silenced that you can't say this or can't say that. So, do you hide your feelings or opinions, is the question, from your partner? And why? Are you afraid to say something because you'll be judged? Oh boy, that's a betrayal. Or you'll be pointed the finger at, oh boy, that's belittling. Or you'll be attacked psychologically, emotionally, right? Because you had a feeling or opinion. Or they're going to leave you because all of a sudden you have a voice. I've been there. Or you failed to ask for what you want, right? It's not about who wears the pants. It is not about that. It is about being assertive and both of you finding that voice together. But sometimes you got to tippy-toe around that, because you might be dealing with a psychopathic personality or someone that is always belittling you in a sense that you're afraid to say something because you don't want to lose the love and you want to stay in the love, right? So you take the abuse. Or are you the go along, get along girl? I've been called the go along, get along. And you know, I really like being the go along, get along. But I always have my boundaries and I always know what someone else is doing. But I do my best not to let it get to my emotional deepness, because once it gets in that emotional deepness, that's where the stuckedness comes, and that's where the armor comes and the patterns. So when you are wanting to be just agreeable, congruent in the relationship, you just don't want to have any conflict or friction, and sometimes you just yes and no. And you can only do that for so long, but there's going to be a point that you're going to want to take a step from that. So let's just keep that in mind. Shame prevents girls, especially girls, and even boys now, from speaking their mind, asserting oneself. Shame and hiding. So the more shame we have, it's like this pool of shame and being the fool. Like shame and being the fool and rejected are in one bubble. Guilt and stuckedness and holding a grudge is another bubble. And then you have another bubble is like guilt. So you have these three areas and you sort of dance around them. And you're trying to figure out who you are. And figuring out who you are is when you voice your opinion, is when that voice comes alive. But it has to come alive from all of this energy rising up. Once it comes alive, you're making steps toward your freedom. Now let's go into losing yourself in the relationship. Girls especially, but boys too, are raised to be nurturers. Girls are raised to be nurturers. Take care of him. Nurture them, nurture them. So you over-nurture your partner. Now, in Tantra Wisdom, my work, we get into, balancing out giving and receiving. If you over-nurture and you become the giver, then sometimes your person becomes the taker, your partner. So if there's one that is just taking and you're just giving, then in the end, it's not going to work. So you have to find the balance of giving and receiving. Often we're not taught how to honor our own needs. And that's where we get stuck, because what happens is if you become the over-nurturer, the over-giver, you're not honoring yourself, and then you don't know how to receive. And then what happens is you are giving, and you're not receiving. And then when you get into the bedroom, it's, that person is the only one receiving and you're not. And over time, this is a real imbalance, and this can create a lot of emotional pain later. You may believe that your worth is based on what you do for others. So you do this, you do that, you give, and that is how you receive your self-worth. And this isn't so. Your self-worth is based on what you're receiving, because that just giving is a falseness in the self-worth area. So in order to claim your self-worth and own it, you must receive. You must feel. You must come in and feel that self-worth and own it. Then you give, and then this exchange happens. Do you compromise your own needs to accommodate your partner? A lot of people do that, especially women. They compromise their own needs to accommodate their partner. And I know this is a tough one, because, you got the love there, you got the feeling, you got the fantasy, you have the expectations, all of these things going through your head. You don't want to be abandoned or feel neglected and lose your partner. But are you compromising? You need to nip these things in the bud at the beginning of the relationship. Do you feel guilty for taking time for yourself? This is another one. We're in the relationship, and then all of a sudden, you're giving and nurturing the partner, and then all of a sudden you start to step back a little bit and say, hey, I'm going to start to take care of myself more and do things for myself more. Not that you're neglecting your partner in any way, but you start to feel guilty about that, right? Not a good thing. Failing to set the boundaries is as damaging to the relationship as it is to you. In the beginning, communication, healthy boundaries. We can go on and on about that, and I've been talking about that for weeks. Now, one other thing I'll talk about, wrong character. Sometimes we pick the wrong character. Some people in reality are unworthy of trust. So you have to ignore the positive feedback. If you ignore the positive feedback from your friends about someone you're dating that could be, that they see that they're really not of a good character, or they have a lot of, things about them that people know about them. In other words, they're just not the right character. They have a lot of problems out there. They have a lot of, maybe they're in and out of jail or whatever it is. And if you are, in reality, are unworthy, some people are just unworthy of trust because they're damaged psychologically, clinically. They might have they need a lot more work. So you have to be able to pick someone that you can work together and build the trust with, that you feel it's workable. So you want to look at character too. The people you choose, the people you hang out with. You want to pick someone that is, kind of in your league a little bit. And you want to be a little choosy about who you date, right? Isn't that what it's about? So on that note, I'm going to leave you with that. This week, reflect on, make a list of all the things that you think that sabotage your relationship. And then those are the things that you want to start to work on about yourself. How do you help yourself from relationship sabotage, from sabotaging your relationship? Number one is to seek out counseling, psychotherapy like myself, love and relationship coaching, Tantra wisdom. You want to begin to work on yourself first and then work together with your partner, if indeed that you believe that this partner is the one you'd want to be with for the long term. So you can help yourself and to healthy and better relationships. Thank you for tuning in to Discover Joyous Love. I've been your host, Anita DeFrancesco. I can be found at tantrawisdom.com. And I also have a true crime book called the DonnaGentileStory.com. You'll have to read that book. It's about a woman who was silenced, and it gets into these topics about relationships and men and women and how we sabotage ourselves through resilience, through fear, through a number of things. Have a great day.